And yes, by the way, they are trying to take away our history and our heritage. You see that.
There are glaring similarities.
You can't change history, but you can learn from it. Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson. Who's next? Washington? Jefferson? So foolish.
Between the former president's good old days rhetoric.
The Eyes of Texas has ties to minstrel shows, and it does include that quote from Robert E. Lee.
And UT's Eyes of Texas.
You would think they'd want to make our country great again, and I honestly believe they don't.
These are approaches to keeping the institutions of white supremacy.
During the Civil War, the flag was the official symbol of the Confederate States, but more than a century and a half later, it represents rebellion and, for many, racism.
From symbols like the Confederacy sprinkled throughout our country to this day.
And General Robert E. Lee in what's called the National Statuary Hall Collection. Meanwhile, there are only 4 Black Americans, including Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, represented by busts and statues in the entire Capitol complex.
American politics, specifically the Capitol building in D.C., simply has not. Nor has the University of Texas, Austin. And that's where former Longhorn QB and well-paid NFL backup Colt McCoy comes into the fray. Per the Texas Tribune, McCoy was among a group of connected UT Austin donors who organized an effort last June to pressure university leaders to keep the alma mater's song. If you missed our piece from a few weeks ago, the title of this hateful song was taken from a favored saying of a former school president who had mimicked remarks by Confederate General Robert E. Lee. The song was routinely performed by musicians in blackface at minstrel shows. A professor at the school even wrote a piece concluding his findings. The line, "The eyes of Texas are upon you," was inspired by a statement about General Lee in the Civil War. The Eyes of Texas song copied not only the melody, but the form and some of the words, phrases, and rhymes of the racist levee song. General Lee was thought to have said, "The eyes of the South are upon you." The claim that lyrics such as "You cannot get away at night" or "Early in the morn" were nostalgic references to slavery, and the belief that the tune itself, lifted from the levee song, better known as "I've Been Working on the Railroad," constituted a racist trope. The professor continues. The song was written specifically to be performed at an event in which white UT students would mock black persons, which runs directly counter to UT Pres Jay Hartzell's intentional fugazi commission and report and blah blah blah, where he and his staff concluded, well, it just wasn't racist. And still, even with all this intel, Colt McCoy was like, yep, we gotta have it. The Texas Tribune uncovered roughly 300 emails in support of the song remaining. These are their messages. It's time for you to put the foot down and make it perfectly clear that the heritage of Texas will not be lost. It's sad that it's offending the blacks. As I said before, the blacks are free, and it's time for them to move to another state where everything is in their favor. This is who McCoy stands shoulder to shoulder with. However, UT tried providing cover for McCoy. Initially, they did not abide by the Tribune's open records request. It wasn't until they were caught that they provided more emails, one of which was McCoy's. The others, Bud Brigham, an oil tycoon who recently donated an undisclosed 5-year gift to the school, Bill Stanley, a chemical engineer and entrepreneur who has donated at least $2 million, and Mickey Klein, an independent oil and gas producer and philanthropist who has donated nearly $28 million to the university. UT Austin officials had at least 2 direct convos with donors to discuss their concerns, including one between a UT Austin VP and Stanley, who wrote in an email that the anti-song effort was being driven by socialistic groups that are using the blacks as pawns. Holy crap, this is terrible. In other words, tell me you voted for Trump without telling me you voted for Trump. Brigham set up a conference call with McCoy and other alumni to update them on the situation and solicit potential solutions and ideas.
They love African American people. They love black people. MAGA loves black people. Oh, look at my African American over here. Look at him.
Essentially, this was the pro song of the Confederates' plan. After countless conference calls and email chains strategizing how to keep a song inspired by a man who wanted to keep slavery in place, they concluded that a task force had to be assembled, ideally 50% African American and 50% non-black Longhorn athletes from varying backgrounds. Kenneth Abusi, co-founder of Stone Lake Capital Partners, was waiting to sign paperwork on a $1 million commitment until the university made a decision on the song. He said he would not donate if there were changes to the university song and traditions. In the piece, the list goes on, and Abusi is just one of a handful of examples.
Shut up and dribble.
And of course, UT Austin practiced this sentiment. While university officials have insisted that no one will be forced to sing it, 2 Longhorn football players told the Tribune that athletics leaders said they must stay on the field for the song because their protests were upsetting donors and alumni. Go figure.
If you'd like to hear more thought-provoking content like TYT Sports on Facebook and to help in my journey to keep media independent, go to tyt.com/Rick.